The official website for the World Sidecarcross Championship is fimsidecarcross.com. It's all there.
We're taking you on a journey. Not just any journey, but one which embraces the cultures and diverse lifestyles of many countries across Europe. The beauty of Europe is there for all to see, from the tranquil flatlands of Holland to the startling architecture and compelling history of places far to the east. These countries all have much to offer. Different they may be, each beautiful in their own way, but united in sport. And not just any sport. We're looking back at the first half year of the wild, spectacular sport which is the World Sidecar Motocross Championship. The championship kicked off in the Netherlands, a country famous for its tulips, its windmills, its culture, its waterways, and where most people, believe it or not, young or old, tend to ride a bike. The deep sand of the Ulderbroek circuit was the first test, with drama coming from the word go in qualifying. The first turn is always a challenge, and Ulderbroek was no exception. Even the best were caught out, and young hopeful Julian Veldman lost his passenger in the deep ruts, fortunately without serious injury. Jorrit van der Putten was left limping as the race went on, but he'll be back. Stuart Brown and Joe Millard found themselves deep in a battle with the French-Latvian pair of Giro Mucenieks. Multiple world champion Daniel Willemsen with Robbie Bax was very much at home in the conditions, as were the Belgian pair Dierkens and Rostin. But victory in the first race of the year went to Giro and Mucenieks. The second qualifier was every bit as dramatic, with too many people going for the inside line. But it was Santomans the Belgian and the young Czech Čermák brothers who led the way. Santomans and Dieders got themselves bogged down, and then Čermák was through. But it was a Dutch victory for Koen Hermans and Kenny van Halen. The first Grand Prix race proper saw Stuart Brown grab the whole shot, totally aware of more chaos behind. 3 outfits were left to sort themselves out as former champions Etienne Bax and Nicolas Mousset set off after Giro and Mucenieks. Bax was very much at home and eventually got the better of the Frenchman as Stuart Brown and Joe Millard consolidated their 3rd place. Try as he might, Giro could not close down Bax despite his 4-stroke Husqvarna engine working well in the sand. Etienne Bax and Nicolas Mousset, to the delight of the local crowd, were on course to win the first Grand Prix race of 2017 in style. Despite closing on Bax, Valentin Giraud and Elvis Mucenieks were happy with the runner-up spot and 22 points. Brown and Millard were pushed back to 4th as Hermans van Halen snatched 3rd. Race 2 and Bax took the wide line at turn 1 to stay out of trouble, whilst Brett Wilkinson and Dan Chamberlain grabbed the lead. Quite soon though, Hermans and Van Halen took control at the front, with Wilkinson and Bax jostling for 2nd. Wilkinson, with his sidecar on the left, lost out to Bax on right-handers, and Bax moved ahead and set about catching the leaders. Meanwhile, Giraud and Mucenieks were playing catch-up after a slow start and were shortly to be fighting their way through the traffic. The track was by now very deep, and several of the crews were caught out in the ruts. Even Giraud had a moment, but survived to continue the chase, and he did well. Meanwhile, Etienne Bax and Nicolas Mousset started their 2017 campaign with a double victory and maximum points.
Yeah, I'm really happy. I never expected to win 2 races here today, but we showed that we can be quiet and wait for a gap, and we could pass Hermans quite on a nice way, and could finish the races first. And that feels good. It gives confidence for the next races, and yeah, we take the first 50 points. So the red plate for next ride brings some extra pressure, but yeah, I'm really happy. My home GP, many sponsors, many supporters here, and yeah, to win the GP, it's the best feeling there is, I think.
Next stop on our journey is the city of Chernivtsi in the Ukraine. It lies in the foothills of the Carpathian Mountains and is rich in culture and history. Now very proud of its independence, Ukraine can hold its head up as a true sporting nation and welcomes us with open arms for the second round of our epic World Championship. A lower number of entries made the trip here, but that added to tension as all 23 crews raced for turn 1 in the first race, with Daniel Willumsen and Robbie Bax taking the lead, from Sanders, Sernens and Brown-Miller. Etienne Bax then got it all very wrong, and his passenger Mousset was lucky not to be hit by the Chermak brothers. Both were okay, but you can see just how close it was. Giraud, meanwhile, was absolutely flying in pursuit of the leader, but first there was a small matter of Sanders to contend with. Then drama as Giraud's engine died. As it turned out, it fired up again, so he had all the hard work to do once more. Riding like a man possessed, he carved his way through the field, and as each lap unfolded, he came closer and closer to the front of the pack. Giraud was easily the fastest man in the race. Where would he have been but for the breakdown? He eventually made second, with Daniel Willumsen a worthy winner. Stuart Brown came home a very strong third. Race 2, and it was the Belgian-Latvian pair of Marvin van Lucien and Harold Skurtnieks who grabbed the lead. The dust made it very tough for the teams at the back, and the crowd absolutely loved the high-flying antics. Willumsen and Etienne Bax again gave a high-speed demonstration at the front, with Van Lucien fighting off the chasing pack in third. And what a pack it was! Britain's Brett Wilkinson and Dan Chamberlain had showed what they could do in Holland and wanted more here. They were leading the charge in the dust behind Van Lucien. Then Willumsen hit a problem. His engine had died, and with it, his second place. Once going again, he found that he had Giraud for company, and the Frenchman was riding his heart out. The next three crews were so close you could fit them all in the back of a van as Etienne Bax made good his escape. He was now in an easy lead, both of the race and the championship, as the battle raged behind him. But Giraud was chipping away and would eventually grab second place. The bone-hard track suited his style, and there was plenty of room to pass. Willumsen, meanwhile, was the Dutch meat in a British sandwich as he fought hard to catch Wilkinson and keep Brown behind him. Then he was through and up to third, but just when he thought he could sit back, he suddenly had Brown for company. Brown tried every trick in the book, but it was all in vain. Willumsen had done enough to hold on and be overall winner. It was a resounding victory for a battered and bruised Bax and Mousset.
People remember me from the last years, and the fans in Ukraine, they are incredible here. It is so crowded and good, and the fans. And today is my birthday, and we win the Grand Prix. So this is the maximum in feeling what you're gonna have. Yes.
Kramelin in the Czech Republic is the third stop on our tour. We're in the western part of this lovely country with 10 million residents. The main city of this region is Pilsen, and if you enjoy a good beer, you have a lot to thank Pilsen for. More stunning architecture and historic buildings greet any explorer of the city, but we're heading out into the country and leaving the tranquility and peace behind us as we go in search of round 3 of the World Sidecarcross Championship. Heavy rain just before the session made for an interesting qualifying on a very muddy track. Etienne Bax and Nicolas Mousset again pulled off a cracking start to head Group A. Hermans and Van Halen headed Brown and Millard in 2nd and 3rd. Brown is no stranger to muddy conditions, and this showed. Bax demonstrated his versatility and appeared in complete control as he attacked the mud. Hermans and Van Halen also showed that sand isn't the only surface for them. Brown and Millard with their left-hand sidecar got the job done in 3rd, but Bax and Mousset took the flag first. Van Lucien and Kurtnieks made the whole shot in Group B from Willemsen and Valentin Giraud. A tangle at the first turn is almost inevitable, and this one ruined the chances of 3 crews. Soon the old firm was back in business, and Willemsen Bax were past the Belgian and pulling away. Giraud too smelt blood and was after his Dutch rival like a scalded cat. The sun was now out, with deep ruts all round the track. Everyone seemed to be getting round okay though. Or were they? Willemsen was making no such mistakes though, and was half a minute ahead of his French rival Giraud, who stayed remarkably clean. Well, at least on his back. Race 1 on Sunday, and the frantic dash to turn 1 on a drier track resulted in Austrians Weiss and Schneider getting the drop on Willemsen and Bax, but not for long. Giraud was also in the hunt and in the chasing pack of 5 crews, making the most of the drier conditions as the 2 leaders pulled out a small gap. Then it was the turn of the young Czechs, Thomas and Andrei Chermak, to stand up to Giraud and make life difficult as he claimed their 3rd place. The home crowd shouted and screamed to help the young pair. Then they succumbed to a charging Hermans Van Halen, and very soon after had another problem as they came under pressure from Van Lucien and Kurtnieks. They managed to hold them off for a fighting 5th. But it was 10 times champion Willemsen who kept it nailed to the flag and took race 1 with a handsome lead over championship rivals Bax and Giraud. The crowd loved it, and they knew there was more to come. This time out, Etienne Bax and Nicolas Mousset were the stars of the start. Again, the 3 fastest men led the field, with Willemsen Bax and Giraud Muchenieks in close company. On a dry but rutted and bumpy track, it was never going to be easy to pull away, but Bax began to make his move. An earlier incident had sidelined Julian Veldman and Ben van der Bogart, and their race was over. Dust had seemed almost impossible yesterday, but it was becoming a real problem in parts of the track. Not so for Bax though, he had clear vision and made the most of it. Hermans and Van Halen were looking to maximise their points score in a solid 4th place, and minus a front number plate, they kept it pinned. Van Lucien and Kurtnieks in 5th were looking very composed. As were the Brits, Wilkinson and Chamberlain, destined for 6th place overall. But the red plate of Bax came home first and brought to an end a fine weekend for the leader.
Everything here, everything is about the start. If you have, we see it yesterday on the times. It's like with 4 or 5 people in 1 second we're riding. So you cannot make the difference on the track. So the start is the most important. The first race we thought that we had whole shot and we didn't. And second race we had whole shot and yeah, it's very difficult for somebody to pass us then. And for us the same.
Hello again from a beautiful part of France in the foothills of the French Alps. Annecy is the nearest large town with a unique charm and friendly people. The Chaumont 74 Club has been running motocross races here for decades, so expect a good show for round 4 of our championship. Overnight rain made the track very muddy indeed for the first race and resulted in a tangle at the first turn. Local favourite Valentin Giraud and his Latvian passenger were flying high and spurred on by the cheers of the crowd as they broke away, with Etienne Bax and Daniel Willemsen chasing hard. The Dutch crews are always a class act, whatever the conditions, and Brett Wilkinson is always at home in the mud. Koen Hermans and Kenny van Harlen, along with the Belgians Dierkens and Rostam, were next up for Willemsen to catch. Not for nothing is this man 10 times a world champion. But just what is it that makes him so special? Brett Wilkinson and Dan Chamberlain tried a bit of fencing practice with Dierkens and Rostam, as Giraud fired it through the air and over the finish line jump. Championship leaders Etienne Bax and Frenchman Nicolas Mousset made no mistake next time, grabbing the inside line from the start. With a clear track ahead, they only had Wilkinson and Chamberlain for company, with the young Czech Chermak brothers in third. Giraud, in a clean shirt and different colours, was moving through after a slow start and was very quickly on the Chermaks, with Willemsen in tow. Once past, Giraud got his head down and Willemsen followed suit in a seemingly effortless pass. Bax, meanwhile, was making the most of his lead and was certainly the cleanest crew on track. Giraud was about 6 seconds adrift, but closing as the French fans went wild. Willemsen and Robbie Bax were strong in third and would earn good points in their championship quest, but the same could not be said of Hermans and Van Harlen. The push to the side brought their day to a premature end as Etienne Bax and Nicolas Mousset jumped for joy over the line. But the biggest cheer was for Giraud.
Yeah, I win home GP. I'm really happy. A lot of people for me and for Etienne also. I think it's the best feeling winning the home. And yeah, thanks everybody, my sponsors, Etienne also, yeah, everybody. I'm really happy.
The entire circus packed up and travelled northeast to Latvia in the Baltics for round 5. Latvia has many strong traditions, and surprisingly, sidecar motocross is one of them. Kegums is where we find ourselves, and the sheer beauty of this historic city takes the breath away. Race 1 gave Valentin Giraud and his local passenger Muchenieks the chance to show that they could really do it well off the line, and they grabbed the whole shot from Stuart Brown and Joe Millard. There was the usual carnage at the first turn as several crews got tangled up, but the leaders were all clear and away. The terrain here was in complete contrast to the stones and mud of Chaumont, having a soft sandy soil which would very quickly develop into ruts. Willemsen-Bax had the lead from Giraud Muchenieks, and the Belgian Van Lucien with his Latvian passenger holding third. Etienne Bax was in fifth. Things were looking good for the series leader until his engine decided to stop. Precious seconds were lost, then lo and behold, it fired up again. Now Bax was playing catch-up and almost fell into the clutches of Brown and Millard. Bax had left himself too much to do, with not too much time to do it in, as the clock ran down. At the front, Daniel Willemsen and Robbie Bax brought it home to claim a well-earned victory in familiar sandy going. Fresh from success, Willemsen again made a superb start to lead race 2. He was flying high and in determined mood this time out. The track was digging out, but this sort of going was a birthday present for Willemsen. His fellow countryman Etienne Bax was hot on his tail, with Koen Hermans third, Sanders fourth and Giraud fifth. Then suddenly Bax made a move on Willemsen and he took the lead. These two crews know each other very well and race together week in, week out. Giraud Muchenieks too were on the charge, but had their hands full fighting their way through. Hermans and Van Halen was still between them and the leaders. There was plenty going on, with points all the way down to 20th. Every single place counts. In the closing stages, Bax had done enough and was very much in control at the front, despite the ever-deepening ruts. Willemsen and Robbie Bax, by comparison, seemed to be almost cruising ahead of Hermans and Van Halen, so it was a Dutch 1-2-3 at the front, and that's how it finished. Willemsen had done enough to take overall victory. The Etienne Bax and Nicolas Mousset sidecar cross machine marches on.
This weekend was everything was like it must be, and totally we win the Grand Prix, one and a second, a lot of points, and I believe we can be happy. Yes, really.
Brittany, in the northwest corner of France, is famous for its motocross as much as its idyllic lifestyle. On a beautiful summer's day, there is no better place to be. The calm, peaceful town of Ifendik is home to a Grand Prix motocross circuit, and that's why we're here for round 6. French hero Valentin Giraud and his Latvian passenger Elvis Mucenieks came here carrying the red plate. The ruling by the authorities took it from Bax for using non-approved fuel, so now Giraud had to fight to keep it. He made a good start, grabbing the whole shot in the first qualifying and looked to be going away. Daniel Willemsen was not so lucky and had to fight through the field to secure his place on the grid. Qualifying was never in doubt though. Willemsen is too wily for that. The enthusiastic crowd celebrated his efforts as he charged through the field, but it was their man Valentin Giraud who took victory in the first qualifying. Q2, and it was another charge into turn 1, with Andy Bergler and Martin Betschart grabbing the lead with their left-handed sidecar. Bax was about 5th, but never fear, his turn would come. Soon he was on the case, and moments later leapt into the lead. The number 75 of Yanis Didas and Kaspar Stupelis, himself a former world champion, were really flying on the hillside track. The Latvian pair are always quick, but they were super fast here. Bax, meanwhile, had an easy ride to the flag to cement his place on tomorrow's grid. Race 1, and it was Bergler again, but this time Bax was up his pipe, determined to claim back the red plate. 32 sidecars made an impressive sight all bunched together on the opening lap. Giraud was labouring somewhat, having started badly. In this company, fighting through the field is not an easy task. Willemsen too had a battle on his hands, but the Kegums winner seemed at ease on the climbs and drops of this famous circuit. He had that calm air of someone who is supremely confident. Giraud was being urged on by his supporters, and in passing Koen Hermans and Kenny van Halen, moved one more place up the ladder. But it was not to be. The Husqvarna cried enough and Giraud's race was over. Etienne Bax claimed the 25 points and in one stroke of the pen moved back in touch with the luckless Giraud. Race 2, and once again Willemsen and Bax had the advantage into the first turn. Dust was by now a major problem and would be in the early laps. Neck and neck, the two Dutchmen duelled it out with Giraud in close attendance, having had a much better start this time. He was still proudly wearing the red plate, and that must have been like a red rag to a bull for the race leader Bax. Etienne Bax had a point to prove, and he was going to do just that. His bike control over the steep jumps and drops of Ifendique was something very special indeed. In the closing stages, he'd opened a massive lead, having led almost from the word go. It was indeed a good day's work at the office for Bax, who was about to become overall winner. He was able to ease off and savour the victory as he crossed the line. Giraud and Mucenieks did enough to claim 22 points, whilst Willemsen brought it home a safe third.
For us the points was good, and we're now 9 points behind and going to Lommel, so yeah, I have a good feeling about this weekend.
The next stop on this whirlwind tour of Europe is in the shadow of the giant wind farms at Lommel in Belgium. Just a few kilometres from the home of Etienne Bax, surely he would know this terrain like the back of his hand. The locals love the sand and make the most of any good weather, and there's also plenty to see in Lommel itself. The start straight at Lommel is always graded flat before each race, and that guarantees a fast first corner. These conditions would suit the Dutch sand superstars, and the king of them all, Daniel Willemsen, hit the front in qualifying Group A. He was on a mission as he tried to open a gap from the chasing pack and was the only rider to have clear vision. Then drama. As Giro closed on the Belgians Dierkes and Rostang, this happened. But soon he was up and running and closed on Wilkinson and Chamberlain, who promptly retired. Wilkinson possibly feeling the effects of his recent collarbone injury. Daniel Willemsen was superb in the sand and made it safely to a good choice of grid for the race. Etienne Bax would probably be sleeping in his own bed tonight just down the road, but first he had a job to do here. A good start was never in doubt, and he was on the back of Van Lucien the Belgian very quickly, and in a few more bumps and bends was past. At that moment the Belgians got it wrong. You see, even the ace men can slip up. In ever-deepening ruts, Bax established his dominance, with the young Julian Veldman giving a good account of himself. But it was a Q2 victory for Bax, and Veldman very pleased with his efforts too. Valentin Giro left himself an awful lot to do in race one. Starting from the right, he was wide in the deep sand. Not so Willemsen. He and his Belgian rival Van Lucien traded blows for the lead. Very soon it was business as usual when Etienne Bax and Nicolas Mousset got their act together. Flying high over the Lommel jumps, they sent Willemsen a very clear message. Deep ruts are a problem. Once in, you can't steer away from trouble, and Bax had nowhere to go. Imagine his desperation knowing that Willemsen was getting away. And the 10 times world champ, taking the plaudits from spectators, had done a masterful job in familiar conditions. He could almost sit back and relax, but not quite. He still had to fight his way round what had become impossible terrain in search of the checkered flag. The ruts were half a metre deep, but it's all in a day's work for Daniel Willemsen and Robbie Bax. Young Veldman was still racing hard and showed that he too is something of a sandmeister. And it was damage limitation for Etienne Bax after his earlier tangle. Would it be more of the same for race 2? Again Giro picked a wide line, and again Willemsen and Van Lucien fought for supremacy. This time, though, Bax was much more in the hunt early on, and it very quickly became a two-horse race. A mistake from Willemsen and Bax was through, handling the deep ruts with a style that only someone born and bred on this surface can have. Bax and Willemsen are both masters of these conditions, and the deep sand has been a Dutch home ground and the domain of Dutch motocrossers for decades. The same is true of Julian Veltman, who's still learning his craft from the best in the world. Surely this young man must have his eyes on a world title. Etienne Bax, meanwhile, was circulating on what was almost a victory lap to celebrate a great result just a short distance from home. Willemsen and Robbie Bax again proved they're a force to be reckoned with as they collected overall victory on aggregate. And young Julian Veltman rounded off a great day's racing and was the first to congratulate his passenger on a job well done.
Yes, I can honestly say that there were some teams who did not respect the blue flag. We crashed through this reason, and then Etienne can close the gap again, and he was closing the gap so quickly because we cannot do our way. We are coming back in 2012. I won the last World Champion title. I had a lot of blessures, problems physically. I broken in 2013 13 ribs, the shoulder, the collarbone. So I really had a long way coming back, and this year it is managing all technically with Robbie. He's motivating the team, and the results are there. And I can say, as the complete team, we are happy. For me, the passenger, the mechanics, and it's going good. Thank you very much. And we keep it going on.
Straßbessenbach in Germany is where we find ourselves for the final stop on our journey. As with many German cities, the ancient blends with modern in a quiet serenity and style. There's not been a German Sidecarcross world champion for decades. So will that keep the fans away? Not a bit of it. It's been a fascinating year so far, so sit back and enjoy what Germany has to offer. The uphill dash from the line here gives everyone plenty of room to sort themselves out, and it was the very fast Cermak brothers who hole-shotted in the second qualifier. Hot on their heels were Giro and Muchenieks, desperate to get back on terms after a couple of mediocre races. Davy Sanders and Edward Soonens also had a flyer. Giro was soon with the Cermaks and was incredibly brave on the steep downhill sections to move ahead. Next to threaten the Cermaks were Stuart Brown and Joe Millard. This hilltop circuit was much more to their liking, and it showed. Valentin Giraud and his Latvian passenger wrapped it up easily and gave a taste of things to come. Giro was high in confidence and getting much better starts here in Germany, with Willemsen and Etienne Bax starting the opposite side of the grid. Who would come over the hill first? Dierkens and Rostang got the drop ahead of these two, with Giro quickly making up for lost time. Stuart Brown and Joe Millard were in a real battle with their Czech rivals, the Cermak boys, and both crews were very much in the hunt. Daniel Willemsen was making up for lost time and flew past Giro, only to lose out again at the next corner. The differing styles of the passengers was fascinating to watch as they fought to maintain grip and stability. But it was Etienne Bax who reigned supreme, once again proving that he intends to be champion again. He really has shown the way this year. Race 2 and the first lap was very busy, with Bax taking the lead from Willemsen. A real shambles unfolded behind with outfits strewn everywhere. The lead pair had a clear track ahead and made the most of it. The Chermacs, Brown and Van Luchem were once again racing hard, with Stuart Brown using his left-hand chair to good advantage. Giro too was flying, but maybe just a bit too much, because suddenly the kettle was boiling. There was no time to stop for tea, but his challenge was over. No such drama for the Flying Dutchman, who, by his own admission, managed a double win on a track he doesn't even like. The old master Willemsen also showed his class and earned valuable points in his quest for an 11th title.
I feel great, you know, this we could not expect in the morning, because yesterday we struggled a lot, and already we came with the feeling to here that this is not my favorite track, and we're not so very fast here. I win the GP sometimes, but never a double race win here. So I struggle some years already here, and yeah, it's amazing to win 2 heats here. And we knew that the start was very important, and we focused on that, and we took 2 times whole shot, and we could manage to keep everybody away from us. Season so far is halfway at the moment, and yeah, so far we can say that we are satisfied. Of course, we had some small problems. The year for us started really good. We won in Oldenburg 2 races, and it was a really good start of the season, better than I ever had in my career so far. But yeah, we had also some disappointments about the benzene, and yeah, that was a little bit disappointing, but yeah, overall it's really good. We're back on the red plate now, and it's for us now the biggest challenge is to keep that red plate.
We was almost always on the podium on races, so that's my goal of this season. Just try to make some good hit and stay on the podium. Yeah, now I hope for the second half we can win more races.
We were in a good shape, in a good condition. We started the season. We had bad luck in the qualification in Oldenburg. We had there a disqualification because of some decibel control. They taken away for 5 places about 12 points. We were winning Grand Prix. 2nd and 3rd places were our results. And so we did win the Grand Prix in Latvia, in Belgium and Ukraine. And finally we got in Chaumont a penalty because the fuel was not allowed to use. So now we are back on the 3rd place. We are hunting.
Well, as we look at the standings, we hope you've enjoyed this mid-term roundup. And let me remind you that the next race is already on us. We're in Austria this coming weekend, the 30th of July. In the meantime, what do the teams think so far?
Center.